All right, now we're going to talk about some more number sense and fractions, and we're going to talk specifically about multiplication. Now, when we multiply fractions, you don't need common denominators. That was one of those things that actually caused lots of problems when we had to add and subtract. We had to have common denominators. Well, the nice thing about multiplication is we don't need common denominators, and that's because of what multiplication with fractions really is. So if I start with 5/8 and I want to multiply it times 2 over 3, if this was addition, I'd have to look at 8 and 3 and find a common denominator and change both of those fractions around into something new. Well, multiplication, what this really is doing, you multiply the numerator times the numerator and the denominator times the denominator. 5 times 2 and 8 times 3. And that gives me 10 over 24. I don't add them. I multiply the two numbers. Then I need to reduce. Don't forget about that. Look at 10 and 24. Say what number goes into both of them. And in this case, 2 goes into both of them. So I can reduce 10 to be 5 and 24 to be 12. It won't reduce anymore. So 5 over 12 is my final answer. And that's how we multiply fractions. Now, some of you have seen that there are some shortcuts, okay, where we reduce. We can actually reduce earlier if we want to. You can do it after, or we just did there, after, or we can actually reduce before we multiply. This is a nice little trick here where, let's imagine I'm going to move down. I'm going to do this again. 5 over 8. Notice 5 over 8 can't reduce, and 2 over 3 can't reduce. But one of the interesting things about fractions is we can reduce from the top of one side to the bottom of the other side, the 2 and the 8. If I reduce from the top to the bottom, 2 would reduce to be a 1, and the 8 can reduce to be a 4. Then I multiply. What's 5 times 1 and 4 times 3? Well, that's equal to 5 over 12. It's the same answer. One important thing about this shortcut for multiplying is that you can only reduce from a top to a bottom. You can never reduce side to side. So the 5 and the 2 cannot reduce, and the 8 and the 3 cannot reduce. Another way to think of it is you can never reduce a numerator and a numerator or a denominator and a denominator. You always have to have one numerator and one denominator when we are reducing. Now doing this though, if I reduce before, notice at the end the answer is already reduced. Up to you which method you like to do. Hopefully we'll do some practice using both, but multiplying fractions, multiply the numerator times the numerator. Now, don't forget it's up and down, side to side, but never side to side between the denominators. It's always a diagonal or an up and down. Okay? So, let's take a moment. We can write down what the notes are. You may reduce before multiplying by reducing the numerator to the denominator, even between the fractions, and then we multiply the numerators and multiply the denominators. Now, what happens if we get a mixed number? Well, like we did with the addition and subtraction, if we get a mixed number, convert them to improper fractions. Just get rid of them. We like our answers with mixed numbers, but for some reason, they just make our multiplication or addition so much more messy, so we like to convert them to improper before we multiply and reduce, and we reduce if needed, and maybe have to make our answers back to mixed numbers. We follow those same steps. Get rid of the mixed numbers, and then do your reducing either before or after, and then convert it back to a mixed number if that is necessary. That's how we're going to do our multiplying fractions. Again, ask me if you have questions, or go out and find some extra help, some extra videos if you can find that.